Today we're going to take a look at some of the Bear and Son Barlows. A lot of people have been getting these and talking about them, and there have been a lot of positive reviews. So I decided I wanted to get a few in and check them out myself and see what all the fuss was about. Now, I did get one different one than what everybody else got. They do make a modern version of it, and we'll go over that in a little while. First, let's move on to this one. This is a red bone. The bone is beautiful. They did a really nice job. This is in carbon steel. You can see it says Carbon 4th Collection. The blade may look centered now, but let's open it up and then close it. Ah, it's in a different position. Let's open it up again and close it. Still over to the right. Now take a look at this. You can even hear that. It's very loose, but yet when I open the knife all the way, it's tight. There's no wiggle. You can even feel the wiggle right in there. So it's different. It's like it's tapered. The bolsters aren't set in parallel. When the knife is open, it's tight. When you close it, it wiggles around. And you can push the blade over here, and it'll... When we push the blade to the one side, it'll stay there. If I push the blade over to the other side, it's still to the left of center. So it's loose enough it'll even stay roughly where you put it. So that's not too good. And as I was looking at these things, let me see if I don't know if you're going to be able to get a look in here. All right, let me show you the back first. If you look carefully, you can see that the thickness of the knife stock is thinner than the thickness of the spring. So that means there's a problem. Okay. If you come in here, I don't think I can get it to where you can see. Okay, right down here, you see some gold. There's a washer on that side, but there is no washer on the other side. So what they did, they're using a blade stock that's thinner than the back spring, and then they're adding one washer in to make up the difference. Because if your back spring is thicker than your blade's always going to be loose. There's no way you're going to be able to tighten these bolsters up and make this thing work properly. Now let's take a look at the next one. This one I did fix. This had the exact same problem. It was loose here. Now, as you can see, it's tight. As I push the blade around, it stays centered pretty good. This was even worse than the other one. You can hear it doesn't sound like there's too much snap anymore because I tightened up the bolster. I had to hit on it with a hammer to straighten it out and make the bolsters parallel again, and then peen the pin over, sand both sides down, and then I hit them with case paste. But if you look at this one, you'll see the same exact thing. Right there, I think you can see it. Right in here, you see just a little gold sliver down between the bolster and the blade. That's a washer, but the other side has no washer on it. It's only on one side. Same thing here. The back spring is thicker than the blade stock. This did the same exact thing. It was tight when it was open, and when you closed it all the way, it had that same play in it where you could actually set it up against from one liner to the other liner. So this knife is now too tight. Not horrible. It needs to break in again, but it's running true. It's working good. It will get more snap in it as it gets worn in. A pivot that's tight when the knife is new is not a problem. It just means the knife is going to last a long time. If it's loose already from new, it's going to develop more play over time. So I don't mind that it's tight from the start. But as you can, I'm going to bring this up by the microphone. That's to the half stop, and that's closed. Back to the half stop, and that's open. So these knives do have a decent snap to them. And like I said, this one did too, but you know, it's less now because I tightened that. But the knife is running true and it's closing centered every time now. This knife is going to need the same treatment. So this one is in a stainless steel. It's an unknown stainless steel. This knife is carbon steel, but this one here is D2. Now this is the same roughly 4-inch Barlow. Same blade. Let's open one of these up. You can see it's the same thing, but this one is in D2. And if you notice, this is all screwed together construction. So on this one, let's get a look in here. I think you can see it right there. There's a washer on each side of the blade, which is standard for any knife with screwed together construction. This one has no blade play when it's open. It runs smoothly and it closes center every time and has no wobble in it. This knife is done correctly. So if you're going to get knives from these series, I think if you want one that runs properly, is centered, has decent snap, although I will say these knives, and especially this one, has the most snap. This knife doesn't have as much snap to it, but that'll vary from knife to knife. They'll use the same springs. But this is definitely a far superior knife to the other two. It's built better and it runs true. You have D2 tool steel, a screwed together pivot with a washer on each side. You even have a screw going through the spring. The covers are screwed on. So this is a knife that you could work with and you could tweak if it became necessary over time. But I think that screwed together construction let them dial this in perfectly. Let's check out the blade stock on this. See, you can also see here, same thing. The blade is thinner than the back spring, but you can see a gap on each side, and that gap is the thickness of the washer. So this one was done properly. What they should have done with these is use the washer half that thickness and put one on each side if they were going to make up that difference there, not just put one on one side. I think it just left for a sloppy build, imprecise. The two bolsters are not true because it's pinned together, so there's pressure put on and it's pinned over, so these things got out of whack, where with the screw together construction, the bolster stayed parallel when the knife was assembled. So those are the problems that I see with this knife and the problems that I see in the construction of it. So if you're willing to make the necessary fixes, these can be great serviceable knives. What it involved was laying the knife down on an anvil and then tapping lightly with a hammer on the other side. That pushed the bolsters together, straightened them out, and then I repinned the pin because a little bit of the pin was sticking up because the bolster was squeezed a little bit tighter to take that slop out of it. So I think with a little bit of work, a little bit of TLC, it wasn't much. It didn't take me long to do that. I fixed that knife. I hammered that and straightened out pinned the pin over, and then sanded it and case paste. 15 or 20 minutes is about what it took. So it wasn't that big a deal, and I don't have a problem doing it. So to me, it was worth doing rather than sending it back. So if you look at this, that was 2 knives out of 2 that had the exact same problem. And I can see in the construction, by the way they're built, why you would have that problem with just the washer on the one side. And the way they assemble them pretty quickly, they're not going to take time to make sure the bolsters are square and aligned properly with each other. If you want a perfect knife, get the modern version. It's excellent. If you don't mind rolling the dice, and you may get one that's right. Or in my case, I got two that were bad. I mean, not horrible, not horrendous bad or anything. They were usable in the state that they came in. But that's not running how I want a knife to run. To me, this is not acceptable. I'm not going to carry this knife around with me. This, yes. Nice and centered. Perfect. Blade is tight. It's okay that for now, like I said, it's a little stiffer, but that'll break back in and it'll be a beautiful knife. So that's my conclusion on these. Yes, they are good. They seem to be good steel. Overall, they're built pretty good. They're built well, but they will have some problems. You can expect to have some issues like that. Like I said, both of them, when the blades were closed, it's loose. When the blades are open, it's tight. It's just, how do you align a bolster with their quick methods when you have a washer on one side and room for that bolster to not be square? Because it's not pressed up against a blade that's ground parallel on both sides. You see the difference when you have the blade and the bolsters are squeezed up against the blade? You have a surface that's going to keep them parallel and not allow one to tip one way or another. So that's my take on these knives, and we'll see you on the next one.